What? Do you think RP is just rainbows and sunshine? Well, I have a word for you. In the previous video, you talked about how RP has all of these benefits, but I am here to tell you today that there are some severe challenges that need to be dealt with. Hello, my name is Marcos, also known as the Enchanted Lore Master. For today's video, we'd like to cover the challenges of RP. What's this? I'm out of time. Just kidding. But that does relate to the first challenge that we'd like to talk about, and that is time commitment and scheduling. With time commitment, with these RP sessions, the average length is about 3 hours. Sometimes they're a little less, sometimes they're a little longer. It all depends upon the group, what type of system, and just the general agreement, right? And the reason for the length is it allows time for everybody to RP their characters and, frankly, battles and taking turns with that combat does take time. So that is why those sessions tend to drag on a little bit, but they're full of fun. So if you are unable to set that much time aside for something like that, then you might look for a system that is a little bit faster paced, a little bit leaner, or just find a group that will align with that. Now for the other one, scheduling. As you can guess, aligning multiple people's schedules with real life activities can be challenging at times. For example, with us, we typically play on Saturday night. But we also know that November and December can be really challenging months to get together and play. And the reason why is because we have commitments with families and vacations and trips, and it's just trying to get everybody to meet together and play can be a challenge at times. But we all know we're going to meet together at the best time, which usually ends up being about January. The other thing with scheduling is that depending on the group, sometimes they will still have a session if a person is missing. But any more than that, it becomes too difficult to give a reason why those characters are not present or have to be managed by the GM. So that is that for talking about the challenge of time and scheduling. Another challenge of RP is how strict or how flexible the RP system that you're going with. Now, this is, depending on its strictness, is not necessarily a bad thing, as it helps give structure and can help give guidelines, but for some people, it could feel a bit limiting. This is kind of an example of that would be Pathfinder First Edition, where there's a ton of rules. You know, you have a ton of feats. Everything is kind of laid out. You have these specific spells and what have you. All these things are kind of mapped out, and you can really customize your character to have these specific crazy builds at times, versus having more like D&D 5e, where it tends to be more I want to say generic and broad in its strokes. So it's more instead of having a rule for every little thing, they've kind of condensed the skill sets and all these things, so that way there is more generalization. Another example of this
is from my experience with some of the RP guilds in the MMO community. And an example of this would be this one RP guild in which they had a very rigid RP structure. They had a specific timeline that your character was playing within, and then they also had a path for progression. These were the type of skills and abilities you had, and certain ones were locked away, to only if you were in this certain secret organization you could have access to these certain things versus this other type. So it was full of flavor and full of a lot of fun, but it was very structured, and not everybody liked that. For me, I had a lot of fun with that. Versus there's this other group out there that basically you kind of meet them in the tavern and they can tell you whatever they want is their story. They could say that, yes, I went and I single-handedly, killed this dragon and stuff. Whereas with this first one that I mentioned, that was a bit too strong. You couldn't defeat a dragon by yourself. You would have to have helpers and groups, and you had to get to a certain progression level to be able to have the power to do that. And so it just kind of depends on your style, on how do you want to play. And so this can be a challenge for some. And like I said, it all comes down to preference. So do your research and find one that you enjoy. Okay, the next challenge that we'd like to talk about is that of group compatibility. When I first started RPing many, many years ago, I had the opportunity to play with a group, and we were supposed to run a good campaign. Early on, we had some newer members to our group. In fact, most of us were relatively new, as we had only known of each other for a couple weeks. So, unfortunately, some of these newer individuals, despite knowing that the criteria for this campaign was to play good characters, decided to play evil characters and murder everything and everybody, and it was just not fun and compatible with the group. The other challenge with group compatibility is what you might say is toxic personalities. So you might have where somebody just constant need of being in the spotlight, or somebody doesn't respect people's time, so they always show up late to the sessions, and without giving a heads up, or just not communicating. GMs going on power trips and egos, drama, and so forth, right? And this is where finding a group that you're compatible with is going to make the experience so much more enjoyable. Obviously, if you are RPing with friends or family that you already know, that makes this already in your favor with the group compatibility, because you already know these people and you already know what they're like, and so you know who you're playing with. The challenge more appears when you try to RP with people you don't know. So when you're making new friends and new experiences, does it have its challenges? Yes. Can it be overcome? Yes. Because as is the case with me, when you find the right group, you can make lasting friendships. And we've done this with multiple different groups and have many fond memories. The next issue that kind of want to touch on a little bit, which is another challenge of RP, which kind of goes along that thought process of group compatibility and the drama aspect, and that is in character versus out of character conflicts. So if you remember, the acronyms for this is IC versus OOC. So IC in character, and that is the character that you are playing. So, I might play a character named Caden, and Caden may do XYZ, but that's not something that Marcos may do. And this is something that people need to be careful with, because some people struggle with that separation. And you have to remember, you are playing a character, but the character is not you. And so sometimes things that happen to your character is not an attack against you personally. So having that degree of separation will help eliminate some of the frustrations and the drama. So those were some of the challenges we talked about, but what are some of the solutions? Well, we have some of those today for you as well. First one we'd like to talk about is start small. If you see something that's caught your interest, look at it. Maybe talk to, if you know one of your friends is doing RP, see if you can watch one of their sessions or watch a stream online. Or in the case of RP guilds in MMOs, they are totally fine with you just watching them RP. And so you can see what it's like, and you get kind of exposed to it and see, is this something that does truly interest you? Do you want to get more involved in this? Or, you just like to be a fly on the wall? The other thing is start with easier and less intimidating roles, and slowly work your way up to more complex characters or situations. So once again, just like start small and work your way up. And the idea with this is, for example, we'll use D&D and Pathfinder, right? I would say if you are brand new to RP, I would probably stick with what is called a martial class, so like the classic fighter or a barbarian, right? It has a simpler set of rules that you'd have to learn and you can get into, versus maybe playing like a caster, because then you have to worry about, okay, what's the limitations? What can I do this? How does the spell function? And it's not to discourage you, but it's just more one of those things that if you're dipping your toe into it, I would start simple, and then you can graduate to other things. I mean, I've played multiple different characters. Some of them because my characters die. Some of them I got tired of them, and other times because we changed the campaign and do something different. And so these are things that you can do. And so definitely recommend start small. Don't. Rome wasn't built in a day. And same thing with your RP journey. Just take it one step at a time. Another thing, focus on fun. And that I think is the core beauty of RP. Some people take it seriously, and I want my, to focus on my RP. I want to focus on my adventure and stuff like that, but I don't want the drama, and most people don't, and that's kind of what we should focus on. Is we're here to have fun. We're here to do this. And so when we do that, when we have the same goal, things are going to more align. Just try to enjoy the experience. And then when you're playing your character, try to stay in character, and just try to keep in mind that I am not my character. Another example, going back with that thought process, is that I've had where a friend of mine, his character, because of his actions, caused a conflict in character with the group. And so the group decided they needed to pass judgment
and execute this character for the crimes that he committed. We confirmed, we paused the game, and we talked at a character to make sure that everything was in alignment, because we like, this were your decisions, and because of your character's actions, this is what needs to happen. Are you cool? Do you want to retcon or do anything? And he was totally fine with that. And so in-character actions have in-character consequences. And so therefore, we had to kill off his character, and then he brought in another character that was super fun, and what have you. But it was that separation. He didn't get upset because we killed his character. Another example is where I've seen where another in-character versus out-of-character, in this RP guild was in, this character goes and he caused some mischief. And he got summoned before the court, with the elders and stuff, and he got punished and had to do, this work, this disgraceful work for this other, group, stuff like that. So it was embarrassing and what have you. But out of character, they knew it was not a slight against them, and so they all had fun. And as always with RP and being out of character, let's be respectful with one another. The world is full of lots of jerks and toxicity. And so role-playing is a collaborative effort. And so let's try to be respectful to one another and have fun with your fellow players. And like I said, going back to the group compatibility, you're not married to them. So if you're not compatible, if it doesn't work, it's okay. Just respectfully bow out, just communicate and say, you're going to go in a different direction, just whatever, right? However is your relationship, you can go and try again, find another group or what have you. There's been some different RP guilds I've tried out, and I didn't mesh with their personalities of what they were trying to achieve with their guild, and, just respectfully bowed out. And then I would also say, embrace your mistakes. You don't have to memorize every rule there is out there, but, learn from your mistakes, and you're going to make mistakes. I've made mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's like, oh man, I misremembered what this spell was supposed to do. Oh, I forgot that I had this. A prime example was on this one game session I had. A poor GM, I forgot that I had an ability that made me immune to sleep. And he had where this aura was causing everybody that failed to immediately fall asleep. And so after a couple, rounds, it was like, oh, hey, GM, I forgot I had that. And it's like, oh, okay, well, we'll just add that your power was temporarily suppressed, but it was reawakened, and you can roll with it, right? Mistakes happen, and having a good group, they will understand. They will help guide you through this process, and it'll all be fun and fine. So as you can see, there are some challenges with role-playing. But, as with anything, these challenges can be overcome, and you can have a fun time with it. And, well, that's it. And thank you for watching.